Any hands?
If it's not too personal question, what does it feel like, and maybe others could comment, as a recipient of a donor tissue? I mean, do you think of yourself as being part of someone else? You know, are there any sort of psychological things that you've had to obviously think about and come to terms with over a period of time, or do you just deal with it and that's it?
Well, I think that most of the time, most days, I'm sure I'm really good with this, you're not even aware of the fact that you're a recipient of donated tissue. But sometimes, unbidden and without warning, it kind of hits you in the face that you can only see Loch Lomond because of donated tissue. And in those moments, I guess you deal with strategies to cope with it. There's a mixture of sadness and gratitude. After my first graft, I developed a cataract, which is probably due to steroid use. And they do cataract surgery under local anaesthetic, as you know. And I was lying in the operating theatre, listening to everything that's going on around me, hoping not to hear Dr. Ramesh say the word "oops." He didn't. But as I was looking into the lens, looking at the kind of wrong end of this microscope through which he's looking, I was suddenly aware of the fact that I could only see into this machine because somebody had given me a cataract, a cornea, and there was an odd kind of sense of sorrow for the person who'd had to die, so that I would be able to see. By and large, I'm quite good at not thinking about anybody having had to die, because nobody died just to give me a cornea. I mean, the fact that they died was separate somehow from the cornea being donated. But the knowledge that the family had been gracious to give this tissue at a time of great sadness for them. A funny story about that occasion, though. I was lying there, and a very pretty nurse was holding my hand. And the deal is, if you want to speak, you squeeze the nurse's hand, and then she tells the surgeon, he takes all the sharp stuff away from your eye. But I didn't feel the need to speak at all during the operation. But afterwards, the surgeon introduced to me a student who was with him, and he said the student was from Malaya. And I said, "Oh, I married a man from Malaya once." And there was a kind of stiffening in the atmosphere. And it became even worse when I went on to say he was a Tamil. And the Malay student really wasn't coping. Everybody else in the room knew what I did for a living, but I don't think he knew. And Dr. Ramesh picked up this stiffness in the atmosphere and decided it was a racial kind of thing. And so he launched into an extensive history of the presence of Tamils in Malaysia, and he was obviously not impressing the student at all. And I learned from that if I'm going to begin a conversation with words like "I once married a man from Malaysia," I ought to make sure beforehand that the people I'm speaking to know what to do for a living.
I mean, I think on the subject of how you feel about a graft, I think it's a very individual thing. I'm clearly not a very sensitive person, because it never has particularly struck me. Though I have to say that the way it happens in Moorfields, you do not get given a box. So maybe the fact that it is so totally impersonal makes it easier to deal with. I mean, over the years, obviously, I've talked to a lot of people. I think I've talked to one or two who are so upset by the idea that they wouldn't contemplate a graft. And I think in all the years I've talked to people with grafts, I've talked to one who sort of permanently felt upset by the idea of accepting donor tissue. But I think for most of us, we are just so very grateful. And it's not something that you think about normally.
I think as well, you go away and you think, yeah, this is a really generous thing that I've had. And you think that, obviously you're not thinking of death, and you're thinking years and years to come, you were going to do this as well, and you're going to give organs, and then realise you can never donate. And then realise that I've had this donation, and I can never ever give anything of mine back, and I can never give blood again. And then you realise, oh, you know, you're never going to give back what you had.
Any other comments from anybody? Well, it's been a long, long day. Okay, well, I hope that everybody's felt, one of the heartening things about conferences like this is not only what happens in this room, but what happens in the tea room, and the fact that you see everywhere little groups of people talking to each other. And I hope that you've all actually found that helpful to meet other people, to share your experiences, because I think that's really the most important part of this group. And I agree with Claire. I mean, I felt quite upset when I realised I couldn't. In fact, I'd been giving blood for 10 years before I was told that I shouldn't be. So that is upsetting. But we can give back, because we can give back to each other, and I think that's really important. So.
Can I just say something? Is that all right? Alice? Yeah. Just because the panel haven't really answered anything, have they? But as a mother of someone with keratoconus, I know there's one or two mums here, aren't there? And obviously young ones, aren't there? I think it's been incredibly helpful, and that's an understatement. I just want to express my thanks for this group, and to Anne and all the other people who work so hard. And I know that over several years I emailed Anne when I was really at my most desperate, because my son really has struggled with this, and like you all say, you don't realise what's happening, do you? And you're trying to persuade them to, oh, do this, do that, or go and try and wear your lenses and all these kind of things. And it's only gradually that you come to be aware of just how difficult it is, and even for the person concerned, they don't realise what's happening. And that thing about not seeing faces, and then I know in my son's case, it affects friendships, because I suppose because you can't see people, you can't smile at them, you perhaps miss saying hello to them. I don't know. I don't know what happened really, but it's just a really kind of frustrating condition, isn't it? And it's so little understood. And I think one of the things that we need to do is to really, really raise awareness of it. And these mugs are a superb idea. Have one in your staff room, your place of work, on your kitchen shelf, whatever. And I really feel concerned that every teacher that's trained, every healthcare worker, every person that works with people needs to have learned a little bit about it, because it's incredible how you say you're perhaps explaining to someone about what the condition is, and they've never heard of it, and I find that just amazing. So I really hope that we can all do that, and I hope that the keratoconus will become much better known, and that we can help other people to to cope with it and to understand it. So I think it's great that all these groups are running, and I think the forum is fantastic, and that there is that up there. So thank you very much indeed for all that you do, and certainly been very grateful. Thanks.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, one of the things that we've recently started doing is trying to get more of a presence at various sort of gatherings of people like the ones you're describing. So, for instance, I've already booked us into something called Sight Village, which is a sort of exhibition of charities that deal with various eye conditions, and my understanding is that people in education, people in the health field come to those sorts of exhibitions. So that's another way that we can reach the people that we need to. And as I say, the more that you individually can do, you're quite right, the mugs are not just a fundraising thing, but they are actually a way of raising awareness. The business cards, the literature that we produce. So anything that you can do to raise the profile of keratoconus, please do.
The majority of teachers sadly get 1 month or less on special needs education, and that's to cover anything from physical to mobility to anything. And I think that's absolutely shocking. The majority, I mean, doing social care at university, we have little training at all on anything other than what you could regard as mainstream disability, for want of a better word. And sorry, and I've kind of spent the last 3 years of my degree. I was originally meant to be disabled officer within Union Council at Leeds Met, soon to become Leeds Carnegie. And due to being a little stubborn person, decided I don't want to be disabled officer because I don't like the word disabled, therefore I want to be accessibility person. And have done, and just been re-elected for a 4th year. I'm going to ensure that this year coming, that there's not a single lecturer within either Leeds University or Leeds Carnegie or the college networks that don't know something about KC, because if I can make the education establishments within the city centre aware, they can ensure that their student teachers have some knowledge and in turn hopefully prevent young people from being failed by education.
Thank you very much. Okay, well I think the parades have probably brought us to a fitting close. So thank you all very much indeed for attending, and see you in 2 years' time maybe? Okay, thank you.